Good morning. Jim, thank you very much for that very kind introduction, and maybe I can make you a deal that I'll let you have the 40 under 40 if I can borrow a little bit of your gray hair these days. I need it. And to everybody here at Saint Anselm's College, big thank you, gracias, for hosting us today, as well as the New England Council and all of the folks who have made it here this morning. I know I talked to some people who drove in from Boston and from other places. Thank you so much for being here. You know, I was here for the first time. It's hard to believe that it's already been a year. I was here on January 24th of last year to visit with the New Hampshire Young Democrats, and also sat down with students here at Saint Anselm's College. And what I said back then, I think I've seen applies today, which is that here in New Hampshire, y'all take your politics as seriously as we take our barbecue in Texas. You write about it, you talk about it, you know, you savor it. So I'm happy to be here to kick off this series of what I'm sure will be, as Jim said, a very busy season over the next several months. Well, you know, the other day I had the opportunity to announce the beginning of my campaign for president in San Antonio, Texas, in the neighborhood that I grew up in. I was there with my brother, Joaquin. Some of y'all may know my brother. We're twins. Joaquin likes to go around saying that the way to tell us apart is that I'm a minute uglier than he is. I'm actually a minute older. I was there with my mother, with my wife, and our children. And in the neighborhood that Joaquin and I grew up in, that my grandmother immigrated from Mexico to when she was 7, and that my mother grew up in. It was a very special moment. And it reminded me, as I said that day, of something I said a few years ago when I had the chance to stand in front of the Democratic National Convention, which is that the American dream throughout our history really has been not a sprint or even a marathon, but a relay. The process of one generation working hard so that they could pass on greater opportunity to the next. I've seen that, like I bet many of you have, in my own life. My grandmother that I grew up with came here from Mexico as a 7-year-old orphan with her younger sister in 1922. Her parents had passed away, and the nearest relatives they had lived in San Antonio. So she grew up there on the city's west side. She never finished elementary school, so she worked as a maid, a cook, and a babysitter. She raised my mother as a single parent, and my mother raised my brother and me as a single parent after the age of 8 when my parents split up. Joaquin and I went to the public schools of San Antonio, and we had a chance to go to college and to law school, and to come back to our home community and become professionals. Both he and I became lawyers and public servants. I ran for city council, and he ran for state representative. We got elected when we were in our late 20s. So we had the chance to reach our American dream, like so many other families throughout the generations. And I am quite sure that my grandmother, as she was growing up as a young girl in 1920s Texas, never could have imagined that just 2 generations after she arrived in the United States, that one of her grandsons would be a member of the United States Congress, and the other would be announcing his candidacy for President of the United States of America. But that's America for you. It is a place where dreams can come true. A country that has propelled families from places all over the world to greater and greater opportunity and success. And I'm running for president because I want to make sure that the opportunities that were available for me are available for every American in this 21st century. I'm running because I believe that we need new leadership and new energy, and because today it is clear that we're in danger of dropping that baton. Because in too many ways, we're going backward. instead of forward. The thing is, though, that if we want to move forward, it takes more than just rhetoric. It takes more than just political talking points. It's going to take a vision and the political will to make that vision possible. My vision for the country is this, that in the 21st century, America will be the smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and the most prosperous nation on earth. A few years ago, when I was mayor of San Antonio, I found myself in India on Republic Day in the state of Tamil Nadu. And as I visited and watched the Republic Day ceremonies, which is their day of national pride, go by, one of the government officials there told me that there were 400 different engineering programs in that state alone. It reminded me that today we live in a world in which brain power truly is the new currency of success in this 21st century economy. That those communities, those nations that have it and cultivate it will thrive, and those that don't will fall behind. When I was mayor of San Antonio, I asked the voters to do something that they had never done before. I asked them to raise the sales tax to invest in significantly expanding high-quality, full-day pre-K in the city. You see, the thing is, as I'm sure you all have seen in your own communities, we're very good oftentimes at investing in things. We invest in airports. We invest in highways. We invest in roads and bridges at the local level. I wish, by the way, that that were true nationally, too. But we often have not been as good at investing in people. And folks in my community, many of them said, "You're crazy. This is Texas. Who's going to vote to raise the sales tax in the state of Texas?" They said, "That's not the job of a mayor." But I believed that improving the educational achievement of that community was my job. I saw reports about the city falling behind in terms of its ability to compete against cities around the nation and around the world. And so we took to the voters pre-K for SA. And in November of 2012, the voters of San Antonio said, "Yes, we believe in investing in these young people." And they passed pre-K for SA by 53% of the vote. I believe that today in the United States, we need to make sure that every single student gets off to a strong start in life. And if I'm elected president, I'm going to make pre-K for the USA happen in this country because it's right for our students. It's also clear that we live in a time when our economy is changing very rapidly. A time when in the coming years, up to 70% of the jobs out there are going to require some form of higher education. Sometimes that's a university degree. Sometimes it's an associate's degree from a community college. Other times it's a certification program or an apprenticeship. We need to ensure, if we want to be competitive, that every single American who wants a higher education can get one. And that's why I believe that we need to work toward a tuition-free system of public university, college, apprenticeship, and certification programs in this country to have the smartest, most well-prepared workforce that we can in this 21st century. That is the way that we're going to compete. Today, too oftentimes, our young people who do get to go to college, because many of them today don't, because they can't afford it, because they think they can't get in, because they talk themselves out of applying. Today, too many are drowning in debt. And because of that, they suffer and our economy suffers. What happens is that those who get out of college, they may owe $100,000 or more in debt. They're in no position to go and buy a home. They're in no position to get on with their life and start to build wealth, start to move forward. We can change that. If we're going to be the most healthy nation, the healthiest nation in this 21st century, we need a different healthcare system. I grew up with my grandmother, and for all of the time that I knew her, she had diabetes. When I was young, I would watch her go off into the other room with her insulin shots to inject herself every day. As she got older and older, throughout her 70s and into her early 80s, her condition got worse and worse. Before she passed away in 1996, she had one of her feet amputated. This is a common story, I'm sure, for those of y'all who have dealt with family members that have been afflicted with diabetes or with another illness. Thank God that Medicare was there for her. Medicare should be there for every single person in this country. I believe that it's time for Medicare for all in the United States of America, that there is no reason that in this wealthiest nation on earth, anybody should go without health care in our country. Being the healthiest nation also means that we have to ensure we make the right investments in communities that oftentimes are riven by pollution or environmental injustices. When I was Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, I had the opportunity to travel to 100 different communities in 39 states. And some of the most poignant moments were hearing about young children who had been impacted by lead poisoning. Their entire lives, their entire futures, their path had been darkened because they had been poisoned at such a young age, something that should never happen in this country. In the Obama administration, we called for increased funding to combat the effects of lead poisoning. I believe that we need to continue to make those kinds of investments to ensure that young people throughout our nation are healthy. If we want to be the fairest nation on earth, we have to reform and to reimagine our justice system. For too many people of color in this country, one interaction with the police can become fatal. It doesn't have to be that way. You can't tell me that if police can apprehend Dylan Roof, the person that shot up that church in Charleston, South Carolina, without hurting him, then that Eric Garner and Tamir Rice and Jason Perro and Sandra Bland shouldn't still be alive today. We need to ensure that innocent until proven guilty applies to everyone in our country, not just people that can afford high-priced defense lawyers. That innocent until proven guilty should not apply only if you have the resources to navigate our criminal justice system. It shouldn't apply only if you have a certain color of skin or if you come from a certain family, but to everyone in the United States of America. I believe that we can get there. We also need to reform our immigration system. Today, we have a broken immigration system. Today, we have an administration that has chosen the path of cruelty over compassion, has chosen the path of politics over effectiveness. We don't have to make a false choice between border security and compassion. We don't have to make a false choice between scapegoating immigrants and ensuring that this country is safe. We can have border security and also humanely deal with the 10 to 11 million undocumented immigrants who are here in this country. We can pass comprehensive immigration reform. As people will remember, 6 years ago, 68 senators in the United States Senate voted for legislation to fix our broken immigration system. But the thing is that it was never given a vote on the House floor. If it had been, it would have passed. I'm convinced that the American people want us to stop the politics and get to the job of fixing that immigration system. The vast majority of Americans do not agree with the president's politics over a wall. They understand that, as many people have told us, we can be more effective by investing in things like personnel and technology. They understand that the vast majority of those undocumented immigrants who are in this country are good people. They're hardworking people. They're people of faith. They're people who have the very same values that all of us do. They're people that each and every day oftentimes are your coworkers, your fellow students, and your neighbors. We need to get past the point of dividing and instead try and unite around a common agenda to find a solution. If we're going to be the most prosperous nation on earth, we have to start by tackling the longest-term existential threat to this country's prosperity, and that's climate change. As president, my first executive order will recommit the United States of America to the Paris Climate Accord to ensure that we play a leadership role when it comes to combating climate change and embracing sustainability. We don't have to choose between creating jobs and also protecting our planet. As we've seen over the last decade, green jobs are one of the fastest growing sectors in our country. Oftentimes good paying, offering an opportunity for people to get gainful employment in different parts of our country, including in my home state of Texas. I believe that we can make the right investments in sustainability and infrastructure to put people to work and also to cut down on carbon emissions and to ensure that we protect our planet in the years to come. Being the fairest nation also means that we need to raise the minimum wage. It has almost been a decade. I can tell where the workers are here. It has been almost a decade since Washington raised the minimum wage. Many of the folks in this room understand because you see your colleagues, or if you are a supervisor or a business owner, you know that too many folks in our country have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to put food on the table, just to pay the rent, just to keep the lights on. And it shouldn't be that way. We need to raise the minimum wage so that people who work hard can provide for their family. We also need to address some deep-seated challenges that hardly ever get any attention in this country. I had a front row seat to one of them, and that's the issue of housing. We're here in New England that has one of the biggest affordable housing challenges in the nation. In fact, over the years, more and more people have moved out of Boston and into the suburbs, farther and farther away, their commutes getting longer and longer, into New Hampshire, into Rhode Island, into other places within Massachusetts, because they can't afford the rent. And yet, if we were to go and to read the transcripts of 30 or 40 years worth of presidential debates, I bet you that the issue of housing hasn't even come up once. That no question has been asked from any single moderator about how we're going to tackle a challenge that Americans of every background and every income level are feeling. Today, more and more American families are paying 50, 60% of their income in rent. The housing, oftentimes, that has been built in communities, whether it's Boston or San Francisco or my home city of San Antonio or anywhere else, is often luxury, multifamily housing that is unaffordable to most families. And the tools that we have used to create more housing supply oftentimes have been diminished, whether it's community development block grants or home funding or others. In this campaign, I intend to make housing a major issue to ensure that it is part of our vision for prosperity in this country. We can expand the low-income housing tax credit that has been the best way, the best means for creating housing. We can invest in community development block grants, in that home funding, and in so many other ways, with the goal being to ensure that people who are in the middle class and people who are poor can find a safe, decent, and affordable place to live in our country. And finally, in the years to come, what we do is not the only important question. It's also about how we do it and why. After Saturday's announcement, the first visit that I made was not to Iowa or even here to New Hampshire. It was to San Juan, Puerto Rico. I went to San Juan, Puerto Rico because I want every single American to know that everyone counts. If we faced any crisis over these last 2 years, it's that we have an administration that doesn't believe that is picking and choosing who gets opportunity and who doesn't, based on what you look like, based on your faith, based on how long you've been in this country. We need to get back to an America where everybody counts. And throughout history, we have had committed individuals, patriots, who helped ensure that we expanded the notion of what it means to be American and cast a wider and wider net of opportunity in our country. We're going backward today. And I went to Puerto Rico to tell them that if I'm elected president, I will work every single day so that everybody in our country, no matter who they are or where they come from, can get a good job, can have good health care, can have the opportunity for their children to get a good education, and that they as a family can reach their dreams. On Father's Day of this year, I went down to McAllen, Texas, on the U.S.-Mexico border. I was there to join a protest of the president's family separation policy. We went to the Ursula Processing Center, which is a place where children are separated from their parents. And there was a lot of sadness that day and irony. It was Father's Day, and little boys and girls were being taken from their mothers and fathers. But one of the things that gave me hope is that when I got there, the people protesting, many of them had the same color skin that I do and that those children in the center did, but so many of them didn't. So many of them didn't look like me. They came from different backgrounds. We are united in this country, not by how we look, but by what we value. We can choose to value compassion and inclusion, and we can come together around those values that have made this nation the envy of the world. We can work hard to create a nation that is the smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and most prosperous. And by doing so, make sure that this century is a century that all of us can be proud of for the United States of America. Thank you very much. You want to take some questions? Sure. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. And I would love to take some questions if folks have them.
We have time for a couple of questions. If I just ask the first question, Mr. Secretary, you indicated your policy initiatives are universal pre-K, universal higher ed, Medicare for all. How do we pay for it all?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jim. You know, that's the first time I've ever been asked that question. I look forward during this campaign to putting forward plans on each of those. Let me say that I have always believed that it is incumbent upon people who are running and proposing something to tell you how they're going to pay for it. And I look forward to doing that during the course of this campaign. Let me just say that I know that that's not going to be an easy task. Let's just take Medicare for all, right? I don't think that that's going to be easy politically. I don't believe that it's going to be easy to restructure our healthcare system. People can remember the fight that we had just to get to the Affordable Care Act in 2010, but I believe that it's worth it. I also believe, and I know that we have some healthcare professionals here that can probably attest to that, that we have a system right now where there is a lot of waste and there is a lot of overspending, and that we can create a better system that actually serves, first and foremost, the people who need health care. And you know, I know that people disagree on, some people may disagree on this, but I don't believe that health care fundamentally should be moved by profit. I don't think that if somebody is sick, that the first concern of somebody treating that person should be profit. And so I think that we need to design a system that first and foremost recognizes the humanity of each and every person and serves that first. And we can get there.
We have a question from ARP. Karen, I think you have a question on daycare? No? I do. Okay. Karen?
Oh, Karen Ulmer-Dorsch, AARP. And my question does concern Medicare as it exists today. We have in New Hampshire 260,000 people who are depending on Medicare for their affordable health care. Seniors and people with disabilities are needing this. What will you do to make sure that Medicare is there to ensure the citizens of this nation and Granite Staters that they can continue to live with dignity and with financial security as they age? So I'm asking, what will you do to strengthen Medicare's role for these vulnerable, I would say most vulnerable Americans?
Yeah,
And
thank you very much for the question. You know, I mentioned growing up with my grandmother who was on Medicare. Today, my mother is. and she has diabetes. And so I see the tremendous value that Medicare has to our senior population. I also know that as much attention as millennials often get, that the fastest growing demographic is actually baby boomers who are turning 65 and who need Medicare. And so my first commitment is to make sure that we don't go backward, because as you know, there very, very much are some people in Washington, D.C. that want to change the promise that has been made to our seniors and that they have paid into with Social Security, with Medicare. But my second is that I believe that we need to ensure that Medicare is there for everybody who's been receiving it, make sure that it's high quality, that we maintain a commitment to resource it, to invest in it, and also, as I said, that we expand it. But the first and foremost concern is ensuring that it serves the people who are on it now, and that we invest in it further, that we don't go backward. In fact, when it comes to health care, what I see happening out there is we're moving toward an independent contractor society. Think about folks who drive Uber or Lyft, or for those of y'all in Boston, if they have those scooters yet, those scooters that are everywhere downtown, right? People pick up those scooters and they take them to be recharged. Somebody picks them up in a pickup truck and they take them to be recharged at a station at night. They're not employees. They just get paid on a certain rate. The percentage of people who are self-employed is increasing. And so, in other words, this idea that where everybody used to have benefits and be an employee, of course, that's never going to completely go away, but that is diminishing. As that happens, I believe that the government has a role in stepping forward and making sure that that traditional safety net is there for all Americans. And that begins by protecting and enhancing Medicare for the people who are already on it. So if I'm president, I will make that commitment, that we don't go backward, that we invest in it, and eventually that we expand it as well. All right.
Tess? I'm going to wait for the mic.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Tess Kinning, and I'm the president and CEO of Bi-State Primary Care Association. So we represent the community health centers in both Vermont and New Hampshire, and there are 30 million people who are served by community health centers nationwide. As your time in San Antonio as mayor, I know you know Central Med, one of the largest community health centers in Texas. And so my question for you is, how do you help build the infrastructure for access? Because it's access that makes the coverage real. Everybody can have a coverage in terms of insurance, but you need those access points. So how do you help build the infrastructure for the community health centers, serving now 30 million and could serve more? And most of those families are low and moderate income families. Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the work that you do. I had the opportunity, both when I served as HUD secretary and also as mayor of San Antonio, to see the excellent work that community health centers do in fundamentally treating people that otherwise might not get care at all. And so I think that what we need to do is we need to make investments in health care that is there and available for people no matter where we find them, and that makes them comfortable coming and availing themselves of health care. In San Antonio, for instance, Central Med has a tremendous footprint now in the south side of the city, right? And so I think part of that is all about being in the neighborhoods where the need is the greatest and protecting the ability of those community health centers to be part and parcel of that neighborhood. And giving the care and being part of the neighborhood and being physically present, all of that requires resources. And I think that in the years to come, as we improve our healthcare system, what's not going to change is the need to be out there in the community to actually deliver it. because there are a lot of people who are afraid to go to the doctor. Right? It doesn't feel like an experience that is for them. You know, and we see this in different ways in poor communities. Banking is another sector where you have a tremendous number of people who are unbanked. They could, in theory, go and avail themselves of a financial institution. They don't, because they think that that's not for them. They don't feel comfortable. Sometimes credit unions fill that gap, but a lot of times even they do not. Institutions, whether it's healthcare or it's other things, need to be present in communities. They need to be a part of community. They need to bridge that gap that too often exists with people who are impoverished, where they don't feel like they're a part of it. And thank you for the work that you do.
Mr. Secretary, excuse me, Mr. Secretary, welcome back to New Hampshire. My name is Matt Mayberry. I'm an Air Force veteran. In the state of New Hampshire, 10% of our population made up of veterans. But during our time together here today, for last hour, a veteran has committed suicide. One every hour. What are your thoughts on veterans, the military, and how we treat our veterans? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. You know, I represented and grew up in a city that has the official moniker of Military City, USA. If there are some of y'all in the Air Force, you may have gone to Lackland Air Force Base to get training. I hope you weren't there in July or August. It's very hot. You know, I think that in this 21st century, we have to be smarter about our military engagements. We saw 15 years ago what kind of mistake the Iraq War was. Obviously, our troops who went and fought over there did a noble job. However, I believe that we need to work to avoid conflict as much as possible, and that we need to invest in the personnel, the people of the military, as much as we sometimes seem to invest in the hardware of the military. That means investing in the Veterans Administration to be able to deliver effective health care. It means investing in the families, everything from housing to educational opportunities of people who are serving in the military as well as veterans. You mentioned veteran suicide, for instance. You know, it means doing what we can to ensure that we remove the stigma from a conversation about mental health. Because too oftentimes people who are dealing with thoughts of suicide or other mental health challenges don't feel comfortable coming forward and availing themselves of services. And so how do we change that? What kind of investments can we make? What kind of work can we do to change that? I think that it starts with a vision of investing in the people of the military and not only the hardware. I also think that we need to do what we can to harness the peacemaking functions of our government. And by that, I mean things like USAID, our diplomatic corps. One of the biggest challenges that we face today is that under this administration, many ambassadorships have gone unfilled around the world. It's harder to recruit people into the State Department, and the State Department is losing personnel because they don't believe that this administration believes in the mission of the State Department. We need to change that. And I believe that if we make those changes, if we're better about avoiding conflict, that that's better for our military personnel. And if we focus on our military personnel as much as we focus on the hardware, that the quality of life of the people who are serving our country so nobly, both as active duty and those who have already served, who are veterans, will be better in the years to come. Thank you.
All right. Wait for the mic. Sure.
Thank you for being here. I'm Oren Falkowitz. Can you speak specifically to, as president, what you'll do to ensure that damages from cybersecurity are addressed both as individuals, corporations, and against our government, and they'll not go unchecked?
Yeah. This is, President Obama began to raise this issue in full in 2009. And the challenges out there in terms of cyber threats, nation to nation or actor to actor, but also in the corporate context, have only grown. And so I think that we need to recognize as a country that the old idea of conflict that's just physical has changed tremendously, and that we need to make investments in ensuring that the United States is the absolute best nation and most prepared nation when it comes to cybersecurity. Making investments in our military, making investments in universities that are training individuals in the United States to be able to engage in cyber defense and to serve the nation. I also think that in the years to come, we need to look at how much preparation companies are putting into protecting the privacy of consumers. I don't think that we can go much longer without there being some sort of penalty for companies that on a wide scale, if they are negligent, if they don't prepare, allow the private information of their consumers to end up in the hands of bad actors. So I think that we need to put an incentive into the system to ensure that companies have as much incentive to commit some of their own resources, and I know a lot of them already do. A lot of them do take it seriously. But we've also seen many instances of 40 million customer accounts, 50 million customer accounts. Those are just the ones that we hear about. Their information ending up in the wrong hands. I think that we need to create incentives for the private sector to take cybersecurity as seriously as possible. And in addition to that, make investments in training individuals who understand this and in investing in our cyber defense as a nation.
The Honorable Justice Roderick.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, good morning. And welcome to New Hampshire.
Thank you very much.
I want to follow up on Matt Mayberry's question on mental health. For the last 31 months, I've been traveling this state, going to gymnasiums and auditoriums. I've seen thousands of young people, many of whom have wet eyes and hug me when I talk about being less ashamed. Your point about stigma is correct. My question is this: it's one of the issues in American healthcare we almost never talk about. I wonder what your thoughts are on how we raise that visibility and how we get the help that people need. I've hugged more parents who tell me they can't get in to see a healthcare worker, they can't see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. It's not morally right, Mr. Secretary. What are we going to do about it, and how are we going to do it?
Thank you very much for the question. And I believe that it starts with, first of all, it starts with the courage of individuals who are experiencing mental health challenges and their families, very courageous individuals and families who are willing to speak up and inspire the nation to change, to eliminate that stigma. But all of us also have the responsibility to meet them halfway. And so, I believe from healthcare plans to the way that schools treat mental health challenges of students, to the way that employers treat mental health challenges, that those challenges should be treated the same way that physical ailments are treated. Because oftentimes, there really is not much of a distinction. There's often a physical manifestation or consequence to a mental health affliction. And so this old distinction really has no more resonance or truth. And if I'm president, I look forward to raising up those voices, to being a part of the solution in terms of trying to overcome that stigma, and in pushing for the right kinds of investments for schools, for employers, and for the United States government to make, so that we can better treat individuals who are suffering from mental health challenges.
Maybe time for one or two more questions.
Yeah.
Gentleman here. Just wait for him.
I'm Chuck Willing, and first of all, I want to say I appreciate very much what you said about recommitting to the Paris Climate Accord and also about the economic opportunities in a transition to renewable energy. My city, the city of Concord, committed to a transition to 100% renewable energy. And I was wondering, the IPCC recently stated that the world needs to largely decarbonize by 2030 in order to avoid catastrophic climate change. And I was wondering if you agreed that if you as president would point us toward that type of aggressive, move toward decarbonization.
Yeah, I do believe that there are ways that we can get there, right? And different ways that have been proposed, some more aggressive than others. But I do think that we need to get on a path, not only to ensuring that we meet the goals of the Paris Climate Accord, which I think we're going to do, right? But to go beyond that. And so I absolutely would move our nation in the direction of cutting carbon emissions, of ensuring that we're combating climate change, that the United States works with its allies to encourage them to continue to make the right investments to do the same, and that we are a leader again on this issue. Because, as you mentioned, we've been told very clearly that if we do not act within the next decade, that the consequences of that could be tragic in the years to come. We've all already seen the data. There's really no more argument about this. Some of y'all may have seen about a month ago that Meet the Press, the Sunday show, had a show on climate change, and they announced that they're not going to have any more guests on who are simply climate change deniers, because the science on this is settled. It is settled. And now we need to act and make the right investments, and I'm committed to doing that. All right.
Maybe if I
More
could just
questions?
ask you the last question. Patriots versus the Chiefs.
Well, y'all, I am a Philadelphia Eagles fan, all right? So, let me tell you something. This is how you know that I'm going to tell you the truth.
That's it.
Let it be said that I came here and I told you all the truth. Yeah. I'm sad that my Eagles lost last week. Good to see you. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Give you a little tote bag here. There's a zipper and everything in it.
All right.
Okay? All right.
Here you go, y'all. Thank you. Take care.
Well done. Well done. All right, thank you.
I think this is the first time I've ever signed eggs.
Thank you.
Still getting used to the curvature. Yeah.
Hi. I'm
Hi,
visiting
how are you?
San Antonio in a couple weeks.
Oh, is that right? What's
Yes.
taking you to San Antonio?
We have a conference about education.
Yeah. Which one?
Gear Up.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, I hope that you have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
Have you been there before?
No. Any good restaurant recommendations?
Yeah, there are several. There's a place called Rosario's.
Yep.
And then there's a place called Boudreaux's on the Riverwalk.
Okay.
And a place called La Gloria, which is at the Pearl District. So all of those are great places.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can you sign one for my friend Hector in Puerto Rico? My FEMA buddy.
Oh, is he FEMA?
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Escape.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great.
Thank you so much for coming.
No, thank y'all for having me. Here you
I
go.
got to hear you last night in Somersworth.
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed that. It was a good crowd and a lot of
was.
enthusiastic people.
It was a good crowd, and we're excited to have you back there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, Mr. Secretary. Des Ortega.
Good to see you.
CC, pleasure and an honor to be here.
Thanks for having us.
I'm a physician down at Brigham in Boston.
Oh, is that right?
And so I do a lot of health equity research, and all the things that you were saying regarding to access were on target.
How long have you been a doctor?
I've just started at Brigham 6 months ago.
Oh, is that right?
So,
how's it going?
Great. I love Boston, so it's been...
and where are you from originally?
Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, is that
Parents
right?
are Dominican.
Cool. They live there still? And everything? Hey, man. Good to meet you. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
No, thank you.
As someone who grew up in the Philadelphia area, I appreciate your support of the youth.
Yeah.
I had to go to a conference with everyone from New
lost
England.
myself like, 30 votes.
I had to go to a conference last year with everyone from New England who supported the Patriots over Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah,
It was great for
You know,
me.
we had to
it
win
was
one
the best
sometime,
one.
you know.
I loved it.
Hello.
Hey there, how are you?
Doing great.
Yeah, I used to live in your town.
Oh, is that right?
Your city.
What took you there?
About 65 years ago.
Uh-huh. So it was a little bit
But my
smaller.
sister was down there. Oh, yes. But I was down there a couple of times last year.
So she still lives there? Or
No,
still?
unfortunately, my sister passed away. So, so I probably won't be going down again.
Yeah, but I hope y'all had some good times down there.
Oh, yeah. Really. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Good to see you. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hey, thank you for coming.
Sure, yeah.
Very impressive. Good luck.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing again? Codman Square Health Center. Community health centers, thank you very much for talking about them. We have the only school within a health center in the country. Talk about wellness, right?
Yeah.
So we started a school, take people out of poverty to the middle class. Dorchester, Massachusetts, you should think about coming to visit.
I will.
Because it's very...
You have a card on you?
I don't have a card on me, believe it or not.
It's Codman Square Health Center.
Yeah, is there one of your people here? Or?
Yeah, there's Billy. I don't know where he went, but yeah.
I'll find him.
I'll flag him down. Oh, here he is. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get my information to you. So
Thanks a
thank
lot.
you very much. Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Secretary.
Doing great. Yeah.
I was wondering what you plan to do to combat discrimination against the LGBTQ+ community.
Yeah. When I was at HUD, one of the things we did was that we expanded the equal access rule. Essentially, it was outlined as being in the context of housing, and shelters, and public housing, even as much as we could in the private market. But when I was San Antonio mayor, we also passed a non-discrimination ordinance that essentially said you can't discriminate against people based on their sexual orientation or their gender identity. And I'm committed in housing, in employment, in every other way to doing the same thing as president.
And do you plan to either do an executive order or to push legislation to do that?
I think both of those things. But first, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to clean up, like reverse what this president has done, because they've weakened, at HUD, for instance, they've weakened some of those things.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing we need to do is reverse in the first year or two what they've done, and then also try and pursue legislation. Yeah, I mean, throughout my time in public service and throughout my life, I've been committed to make sure that we protect the LGBTQ community, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Good morning. Thank you so much for doing this. Good. We met briefly last year at New England College when you were our commencement speaker, so it's great to see you back in the state. We were hoping for that announcement that you made recently.
I can't believe it's already been.
I know. Can you imagine how fast it is? Do you mind a quick selfie?
Yeah,
all right, great. Thank you so much. We hope to see you in the White House soon. Thank you so much, sir. Take care and good luck. Thank you.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you for bringing up Black Lives Matter here. I know, like, in this state, it's not always the most well-received line, but I appreciate you sticking to your message.
Yeah,
so.
no, like, people will find that I'm going to stick to what I believe and what I
As a student, you get into gun issues.
Yeah, and I
there's only so
mentioned a
much
little bit of that the other day, but I didn't.
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
will. I will.
Good.
Yeah, if you can imagine. I agree with the calls for common sense gun reform and all of those things.
Yeah, great. Thank you. It was good to meet you. Good luck.
Good luck with school. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Good to see you.
I was here for your first time that you were here. So.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
When we did that round table?
Round table, yeah.
I can't believe it's almost been a year.
I know.
Since then.
I can't believe it's
So
almost
what
been-
year are you in now?
I'm a sophomore.
All right. So you were a freshman last year.
Yeah.
How are you doing here? How's your experience going?
Yeah, it's
Good?
awesome. It's flying by though.
So you'll be around for this exciting season.
Perfect time too, because I'll be a junior.
How are you? Good to see you.
You listening to this?
Yeah.
So you do this Alamo Cafe right now?
What's that?
Alamo Cafe in San Antonio?
Oh yeah. What's your name?
Danny.
Danny?
Yes, sir. I'm actually looking at St. Mary's Law School right now.
There's a whole lot. It's a great place, you know, and that school and that town. I grew up right behind St. Mary's for part of the time.
What high school?
I went to Jefferson High School,
Okay.
which is probably about, gosh, I don't know, a mile and a half or 2 miles from there.
Okay. Winston Churchill. So.
Oh, okay.
Good luck with everything.
Good to see you.
Blue or black? I'll let you decide.
You want me to do this? Yeah, I can do this.
Are you gonna
Yours
go?
will be unique.
Are you gonna go for the Saints, or are you gonna go for Rams? Who are you going for?
Probably the Saints.
I'm figuring you're going for the NFC. So
Yeah. But my Eagles are out of it now.
yeah, so that's why I know if you're going for the team
like
that beat them,
everybody.
or what you want to do with this. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Hi, how are you? Good to see
Good.
you. Olivia?
Yes.
All right, good to see you.
Good to see you. I was actually one of the award winners at the Young Dems event last year.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So you were there.
Yes,
when I was there with my
was.
wife, Erica, and
Yeah,
we had a
yeah.
good time, yeah.
And one more just for a student that had to leave.
And so what are you up to now?
I'm New Hampshire College Dems president now, and I work for College Dems of America as well.
Excellent, yeah. I think I got an invite to go to one of the events that y'all are having. I forget
Oh, probably
where
the
or
winter
when.
conference.
Where is it?
It's in North Carolina.
Yeah, I think that one, yeah.
Probably. Can I get a selfie too?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Hey, very good job. Yeah, thanks. I teach a course on the New Hampshire primary at UNH in the fall. So if there's, I encourage my students to work on the campaign. So if you can set me up, I can give you my card to set me up with any of your campaign staff about terrific. All right. Making that easier. All right. And I also do all the polling from UNH. So we've already been including you on our polling. Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
For some amount of time, they were not. But we're going in now that I've jumped in.
Yes, we're going into the field another couple weeks, so we'll be having our next batch of this stuff out in February.
Oh, excellent.
So good to see another Texican. I still claim a little bit of Texas.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I just get one selfie?
This is it. This is the end of the road.
Thank you. Did I sign this one?
Just wanted to also give you my card. I know we chatted earlier.
The last
If
two,
there's
yeah.
anything I could do along the campaign, I think please let me know. I appreciate it. You're an inspiration. Thank you.
Hey, how's it going?
I think I'm the last one. I know
All right.
these people look like they're ready to jump. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Oh, happy to do so. Appreciate it very much. Thank you again. Take care. You as well.
Secretary, do you mind if we drag you over here to where the back over?
Mom, good to see you. How are you? I just heard you on the radio yesterday.
A little flip. There you go.
Show that branding.
Brand logo.
Feel free, y'all.
Secretary Castro, what is one of your biggest challenges here in New Hampshire, do you think?
Well, for me, I'm just going to do the hard work of getting out and meeting people. New Hampshire, like Iowa, takes its politics very seriously, and I mean that in a good way. In other words, here in New Hampshire, people want to meet you, they want to hear what you're about, they want to do it all over again, probably 5 or 6 times, and so this is the first visit that I'm making here to New Hampshire as a candidate, and I intend to be here in New Hampshire a lot more, to every town, to people of all different backgrounds, and I'm going to articulate, I'm going to tell people about the vision for the future of this country that I have. I believe that the number one thing that anybody running for president needs to do is to tell people what they're going to do if they're elected. And people want something to stand for, not just to stand against. So I said today that if I'm president, I'm going to make sure that America is the smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and the most prosperous nation on earth. I will work every single day to make sure that no matter who you are or where you come from, that you can get a good job, that you can have health care when you're sick, that your children can get a good education, and that you and your family can reach your dreams. I will do my part every single day if I'm president.
Secretary Castro, you made bail reform an issue as part of your campaign. New Hampshire passed a law last year. They're seeing some hiccups with it. Some violent offenders, some dangerous people are getting out that they didn't intend to get out. As a mayor, you know that public safety is basically job number one. How do you balance that, being able to make sure that people who are indigent have access to bail without letting out the people that society can't have out there?
Well, and I look forward to finding out more about what you've described and what's happening here in New Hampshire. In general, I would say that I do think that we need bail reform throughout this country, that too many people who are in the criminal justice system for some very minor infraction, because they can't afford bail, essentially end up spending months or sometimes, in extreme cases, even years in jail. We need to balance that, of course, by making sure that we have public safety. And so perhaps what's happening here in New Hampshire is an opportunity for other states and for the federal government to learn how we can best do it. But I don't think that we should abandon something like that, trying to reform our system. Of course, when you make changes, oftentimes, no matter what the type of policy is that you have, sometimes there are going to be things that don't work out exactly the way that you thought they would. And if you're serious about making good policy, what you got to do is that you have to make adjustments when they're appropriate. Again, I don't know right now exactly what the case is in New Hampshire, but I look forward to finding out more. And I think that other states can use that experience to make sure that when they go forward, that they do it well.
You mentioned that there was racial injustice or racial inequality in the criminal justice system. One of your competitors, Liz Warren, was just here on Saturday, and she famously said that the criminal justice system is, quote, racist from front to back. Do you agree with her that that's how big the problem is of racial inequality in the criminal justice system?
Oh, there's no question that the color of your skin today affects whether you are treated equally and fairly in our criminal justice system. And I think in the United States that's always been the case. Now, I believe that, of course, we've made strides over the years, but we're not nearly at a place where somebody who's black is treated the same way as somebody who is white, or somebody who is poor is treated the same way as somebody who is rich when it comes to our criminal justice system. And we need to change that. And it's going to take the political will of people from both parties to do it. I've been encouraged over the last couple of years by several things. The legislation that just came forward, I know that it wasn't as strong as some people would like. My hope is that that was the beginning and that we can improve on it. I've been encouraged by people on the left and the right who have been open to reforming our criminal justice system to make it more fair, especially to people of color and people who are poor, who often do not get equal justice in our country.
You're headed to Laconia later today for an event on opioids. I'm wondering, as president, what would you do to help combat the crisis?
Well, I think that we need to invest the resources and be a strong partner with our states to ensure that people have the resources that they need to combat the crisis when it comes to treatment, also when it comes to the prevention of abuse. In the Obama administration, there were some strides that were made, but what we see here in New Hampshire is that there's still a tremendous challenge. I believe that there are new numbers out that may show that the crisis is subsiding a little bit, but it is still something that is urgent. And I look forward to learning more on my visit this afternoon about what's happening on the ground and how Washington can be a strong partner to ensure that we combat this crisis.
You said that you would spell out how you intended to pay for proposals you make during the course of the campaign. Is there any hint you can give us today about what sorts of what means you might look to? Elizabeth Warren mentioned, reinstating part of the inheritance tax to pay for affordable housing. Are there any specific things?
Yeah, we're going to have to. We're going to have to look at a number of ways, starting with closing the loopholes that exist for wealthy individuals and wealthy corporations. I also believe that we're going to need to look at bringing down costs in our healthcare system. So if we're going to get there, it's going to be in two ways, both through reforming our tax system and then also reforming the way that we do health care and reducing the cost of it. And I look forward during the course of this campaign to putting forward a plan, because as I said today, I believe that if you're proposing something, that you should put forward a plan so that the American people can evaluate it.
I mean, you propose a great deal. I mean, universal preschool, tuition-free college. You're going to pay for those by bringing down costs in healthcare and closing loopholes.
Well, I thought you were asking me about health care.
I was talking about cost. I mean, we could go through the list of things you said you were going to do, and I'm just trying to get a hint.
You're going to have, you're going to have to reform our tax code so that it's more fair, so that people at the top pay their fair share, so that wealthy corporations pay their fair share, so that you don't have things like Amazon getting, $1 billion worth of tax abatements. So all around, we're going to have to reform our tax system. One of the things I said up there was that I know that it's not going to be easy to accomplish. It's going to take a lot of political will. It's going to take a system that is different from what we're used to. But I think that we can do it. And I look forward during the course of the campaign to making a proposal.
Can you speak a little bit to the historic nature of your candidacy as a Latino seeking the Democratic presidential nomination? And New Hampshire is not a heavily Latino state, but I wonder how your message has resonated here with, if you've met Latinos and, if you can give us your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I believe that my message is going to resonate with a lot of people. There are, for instance, in this area, of course, a lot of people whose parents and grandparents came from places like Ireland, who know about the American dream experience, the hard work and the struggle that it's taken to do well in this country. And the Latino community certainly knows that as well. I'm going to run a campaign, and if I'm elected president, I'll be a president for everybody. I do believe that there's a special significance and meaning for the Latino community today, because there's no question that a lot of the Latino community feels targeted by this president, and that in so many ways the president has tried to divide people and tried to scapegoat people, and we've seen an increase in the number of hate crimes, not only against Latinos but against other people. So I represent the antidote, the antithesis of Donald Trump. I believe in opportunity for everybody, not in picking and choosing opportunity. I believe in trying to bring people together, not trying to tear them apart. And I'm focused on the future. He's focused on the past. And I believe the American people want to move forward together, focused on the future, to create a nation that is smarter, that is healthier, that is fairer, and that ultimately is more prosperous for everybody.
Secretary, we've seen a lot of Texans run for president in New Hampshire, but they've all been Republicans for decades.
I was going to say, you've seen a lot of Texans, but you haven't seen a lot of Texas Democrats.
Right. So are you fighting any kind of baggage thanks to Ted Cruz and Rick Perry and the Bushes? And
No. Well, first of all, probably a lot of the people who, I don't know that many folks that are going to vote in the Democratic primary in 2020 that also voted to support Ted Cruz, right? So when it comes to the primary, I believe that we're probably going after different folks. Ultimately, though, what unites us as Americans is common values. And it doesn't matter whether you're from Texas or you're from New Hampshire. We can believe that everybody should count in this country. We can believe that we can choose compassion, and we can choose understanding one another instead of scapegoating and creating a fear of one another. So I look forward to sampling some great New Hampshire barbecue at some point, if that exists. And meeting the people of New Hampshire, getting out there and doing the work that it takes to build support in this community. People ask me a lot, do you agree with Iowa and New Hampshire being the first two states? And obviously and honestly, there are arguments on both sides of that. Do I wish that that in the first two states we had more diversity in those states? Yeah, I do. However, the thing that I do appreciate about Iowa and New Hampshire is that people take politics and policy very seriously, and that these are relatively small states as far as states go, so that you can actually meet people one-on-one and get to know them. And for a candidate like me that doesn't start off with the biggest name ID or the biggest bank account or the biggest platform right now, I appreciate that so many people in New Hampshire are willing to make the effort to come here today at 8 in the morning to listen to a candidate that is running. If the people of New Hampshire will continue to take their job seriously of engaging all of the candidates, then I can guarantee you that I'm going to take my role seriously of meeting you, of doing the hard work to build support, and having an appreciation of the concerns of the people of New Hampshire.
Secretary, you talked briefly about immigration on stage, and that's something I just want to parse a little bit more because it's been in the national conversation, just given the shutdown, quite a bit. Republicans consistently say that your party, the Democratic Party, has moved quite a bit to the left on immigration. And I'm curious sort of what you think about that, and have you felt like your own positions on immigration have changed?
No, I don't see how people can say that the debate has moved to the left when in 1986 Ronald Reagan signed an amnesty bill that impacted millions of undocumented immigrants. Ronald Reagan, the Republican president that most Republicans cite as their inspiration today, signed an amnesty bill in 1986. And the debate that we're having today is whether babies should be in cages or not. So if anything, we've moved completely in the wrong direction. We've moved in this direction of scapegoating and creating fear and paranoia about people that I and other Democrats are just trying to pull our nation back from by saying, wait a minute here, we don't have to choose between having good border security and treating people well. We can treat people humanely and compassionately and process their asylum claims, their refugee claims, and also have good border security. So I just don't see it. I don't see that we've moved much to the left. I think we've just moved, we're just raising an issue of common sense and compassion and what this country has been about. And that was exemplified by Republicans and Democrats that passed legislation that Ronald Reagan signed in 1986. I mean, all of y'all have seen the footage of Ronald Reagan and George Bush in the 1980 presidential debate that they had, one of them, where they're talking about practically, they were talking about back then strengthening the relationship between the United States and Mexico. And in 1979, when Ronald Reagan made his announcement for president, he almost talked about open borders. And so nobody is talking right now about open borders. Nobody is talking about not having border security. All we're talking about is doing border security effectively, but also treating people compassionately and humanely, and in a way that is in keeping with the great nation that we are.
On that same subject, Donald Trump has made clear he has no intention to budge on his proposal for a wall. Federal workers just missed their first paycheck, I believe, last Friday. Where do you propose that Democrats go from here in Congress?
Well, the Democrats have been willing to put money into border security. They passed legislation. As soon as the Democrats took over, they passed legislation that was exactly the legislation that Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans had passed unanimously in the Senate a couple of weeks before, to allow the government to reopen, to keep going, and they could continue to work on or negotiate on the issue of border security. But the president didn't agree with that, and now Mitch McConnell flip-flopped, and he doesn't agree with it. I don't think that Democrats should support funding for a border wall just because. What they should support and do support is an investment in border security that actually makes sense. And the president has let his ego get the better of him. He's using the border wall as a political ploy because he thinks that the only way he can get reelected is to drum up a base of his that wants the wall, and that if he doesn't deliver the wall, he's not going to get reelected. So for him, it's all about his reelection, his politics. But we can't make policy and put billions of dollars into the budget based on the president's ego, his politics, and whether he's going to win his 2020 election or not. There's no way that that should happen. All right?
Hi everyone, my name's Mike. I'm the creator of Mox News. And for the last 15 years, I have been telling you that as long as I have the support of the community that I serve, Mox News will post videos forever. And that's the truth. As long as I have your support, no one could ever make me stop. Unfortunately, currently, less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of Mox News viewers ever donate, tip, or contribute anything back. Again, let me make that really clear. Much less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% ever give anything back. And to those of you who have donated to Mox News, I want to thank you so much, because it's because of your generosity that we have been able to bring attention to important videos that millions and millions of eyes would have never seen. And I think that that's an amazing thing that we've been able to make happen together. And I can't thank you enough for helping me make that happen. So it's not too late. If you'd like to see Mox News covering the 2020 presidential election, if you can't imagine the 2020 presidential election without Mox News, please, there's still time. You can make a difference. It's easy to make a contribution, donation, or tip. You can go to moxnews.com, or in the text body of this video, there are clickable links to the Patreon page or to the PayPal page. And again, it should take less than 2 minutes to make a donation, and your donation can make a big difference. So I thank you all. Stay cool. One of these days this war is going to end, and it would be awesome if Mox News could be there to celebrate that day with you.